Welcome to another episode of the JUSTUS podcast. Once again, the dynamic duo is here, and we're going to make the most out of it before winter break.
I'm back, people.
For today's episode, we'll be taking a look at Army of Thieves, Sailor Moon R, Avengers Earth's Mightiest Heroes, and Monsters Inc. As always,
Okay, let's go.
let's go left to right. So, Army of Thieves, a prequel to the Zack Snyder movie Army of the Dead, which we reviewed months ago and quite honestly loved because it was a great evolution to the sort of zombie genre that has been around for so long. Like, it doesn't necessarily override the rules, it instead makes its own kind of rules that show just how distinct it plans to be from everything else, which I approve of, especially since it doesn't feel stale and repetitive compared to your average cheap horror stuff that we get at times.
Yeah, yeah. Personally, time passed by, and I still think that the movie is pretty good. I don't think it was extraordinary, but I do believe that it did something that commonly in that genre is not done at all. So I appreciate that absolutely. And I think that this movie, directed by Teacher, the same actor, is actually very enjoyable. I don't know what you thought of it.
I loved it. I mean, inevitably that was likely going to happen because, like, we're huge Zack Snyder fans. We love his work. We love the kind of stuff he does. How he goes above and beyond with the sort of rules. And I think this one is no exception.
Yeah, but in this case, I mean, it is the same character that Zack Snyder brought to life because I think I said in that previous review that my favorite character of the movie was indeed Teacher, and in this movie he fucking I don't know, man. He's again so awesome. I just love this character. I want to get more of this character, and I hope he didn't die.
Yeah, like Dieter is one of those characters that, that even if you don't remember the other characters as much as you do, um, he at least is basically the footsteps. You know, like he's the one you're going to cling on to the most, the one that you're going to connect with immensely, the one that you're going to root for. And I say like go
Yeah,
for it because his performance is just great all around, and the actor Matthias, and I apologize for mispronouncing his last name, in Schwegelfer is uh, great all around, and I look forward to seeing more of his roles in great movies, and hopefully ones that are going to be like not. I don't want to say like in mainstream media. Like I wouldn't want to immediately cast him in a superhero movie. Like that's overrated. So instead, let's give
mm,
him in roles that are more engaging, like more distinct, ones that haven't been done yet.
yeah, somewhere where he can shine.
Hmm. And yeah, but how about the movie itself? What do you think about it?
Well, the movie, all in all, had a type of rhythm that I absolutely loved. Like it's the dynamic of it just works so well for the typical heist movie, but at the same time, like deep in its core, it's also like a character exploration of Dieter. So I just thought that it was so compatible with his personality, with what was going around, with the other characters. I just thought that it communicated a lot only by doing that. And yeah, of course, it's not an outstanding movie because it doesn't have the resources to be an outstanding movie, but it absolutely blows me away by how, with so little, it can do so much.
Yeah, it's quite honestly surprising that it doesn't feel like a sloppy seconds type of movie.
Yeah.
Normally we get the like direct to video stuff or something that feels like an animated continuation.
Yeah.
In this case, like the original Army of the Dead was like on Blu-ray. I mean, not Blu-ray, Netflix. Anyhow,
Yeah.
so it's not like there's a dip in quality between the two in terms of budget, or at least it doesn't feel like there's one. It all feels consistent.
No, not at all. Oh well, with the exception of the zombie scenes that he dreamed of, those seemed poor in comparison with Zack Snyder's movie, but for obvious reasons, because I guess it wasn't the same makeup crew or well, the same production value by its own.
Yeah, like that's the only sort of like a knock against it, but at least you can at least like move past it. It's not like something that's pretty distracting the more it builds up,
No,
as we've seen with a bunch of wanker boomers do with a big budget movie 4 years ago.
yeah,
Anyways,
yeah,
like yeah, the rest of the movie I think does quite well. I like the fact that that for a while Dieter was having a bit of struggle trying to get some clout on his YouTube videos until someone went up to him and decided, you know what, like I think you're worthy of this sort of underground safe cracking sort of approach and missions, and like it's something that we delve into to see just how good he is at it, and especially considering the fact that he was quite involved with that sort of thing for Army of the Dead.
yeah. So, question I want to ask you:
Yeah,
what do you think of the music? Because I was kind of intrigued by it.
I think it's a kind of music that that has its own identity. I mean, there are just
Yeah.
some movies that have very distinct feels to them that you just don't know how to put your finger on them, yet they feel pretty engaging either way. A good example would be Uncut Gems, where the music for that movie just feels very spiritual, very
Mm-hmm.
like nostalgic in a sense.
True.
It,
True.
and even though some might think it feels out of place for the very vulgar movie, um, it has stuff like sex or violence or blood, profanity in it. Like at least sort of gives you like this sort of weird like contrast between the outer mind of Howard Ratner's life and his inner mind, where he sort of sees this sort of like um, dream or sort of eternal victory of sorts that the music would convey. It's like I said, it's
Yeah.
very hard to describe,
Mm-hmm.
and it's all just using words. Like the best I could be is like, hey, to describe it.
Yeah. No, I get you. I get you.
Yeah, same thing could be said
Uh,
for the music of this movie as well.
mm-hmm. And I was actually impressed by all the sequences where they have to open up the like the forts, the to rob the bank, and I was always just so excited to see if it was going to happen or not. And of course, deep down that yeah, it will inevitably happen because it's kind of how the structure of the movie works for the character. But it was still so well planified, and like you just root so much for this underdog, for this marginalized character, and also how all the other characters work with him and at the same time they don't, because the only person who you see him building a true connection is with the girl whose name I forgot. Can you refresh my memory?
Is she the one that approached him about the
Yeah,
mission? Yeah, positive. The name is Nathalie. Kind of a hard name. Like the Natha part is more in line with like Nathan. I think that's sort of name. Or it's
yeah,
no, it's Gwendolyn, I believe. Yeah, Gwendolyn. Yeah, I got the actress name mixed up with the character name. That sort of happens with me sometimes if I'm not as familiar with it. stuff.
Oh yeah, because the name of the actress is Nathalie Emmanuel, and the character's name is Gwendoline. You said
Yep.
cool.
It's kind of weird too because like when I think of the name Gwendolyn, I think of Gwen Petro or whatever her name is, the actress that played Pepper Potts from Iron Man. Also best known for her vagina scented candles.
Dude, I forgot about that. That was Killier.
Yeah, what a weird way to get clout outside of the Iron Man movies.
I still have 5 unopened packages of that. No, I'm kidding.
Oh
Um,
man, that would be
but
so funny for a video.
but yeah, for sure. I mean, the whole team that gets together. It's so fun to see them one by one at first, and yeah, this character Wendeline, you also feel her as her own. Yeah, in like what I wanted to describe before is the difference between the structure of the movie working for the character and vice versa is that this girl by her own is like her own protagonist as well, and she doesn't work for the protagonist. She works for her own character arc, and I really appreciated that. I like that they focused on those two characters, of course being the spotlight, but she was also very good.
Yeah, like kind of like the sort of approach where you have one character says, "I'm working with you," but not in the way you expect.
Yeah, that.
Yeah, I like that idea as well. It kind of gives you the approach of like wondering who's pulling the strings and who's gonna make it out um,
Hmm.
alive or one piece. Like you never know when it comes to like two characters. One has been with that sort of like knowledge of cracking safes, and the other one who may likely be the more manipulative of the two.
Yeah, but again, um, I thought throughout all the movie that she was going to die, and I was so scared. But it ended up being that she was just incarcerated, and I hope we get to see her again because I already miss her. She's a great actress, dude.
Yeah,
She's from Game of Thrones.
that's a surprise. Well, then again, not
Mhm.
quite much of a surprise. I mean, they have a lot of big name actors of late, but
Yeah,
I wonder where she would fit in next. I think we're getting an animated series at some point.
yeah, we are. Wasn't the animated series gonna be like London focused?
Seems like it. Um, I don't know how the animation style would be for that. Maybe we'll see. But like, hopefully they don't try and call it an anime just so they can try and win over like the weebs or like the big boys that think that a cartoon's for babies and anime's for the big kids, the grown ups sort of approach.
Yeah. Well, recently there was an anime-like animated show that was from J. Oliva, kind of surrounding the Filipino mythology,
Yeah,
and I only watched 2 episodes. I wasn't too much into it, unfortunately, but I did like some concepts.
yeah. I've seen bits of it, and I think that's what I expect them to do for Army of the Dead sort of like animated series. And
Yeah.
yeah, I would see that as well as a Norse mythology series, which go for
Oh
it
yeah.
and go for it, Zach and crew. I'd watch that if it was done up like that. Just don't do what the shitty Netflix War for Cybertron series and just call it an anime just so you can win people over. Even if you do that, like I'm gonna knock off some points for being inaccurate, um, but don't see this as me being hateful. And don't see me as a Snyder anti or like why did they say Snyder anti? Isn't it anti Snyder or something like that? Like Twitter's fucking stupid with those sort of names. I swear to God.
I think we would be like Snyder cards or something like that.
Like anti Snyder is what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. But anyway, let's go back to Army of the Thieves. Um, What did you think about the ending?
Honestly, I'm kind of like like I kind of didn't expect her to um get arrested because like that like you kind of like expect him to like tie it up so he can get into Army of the Dead because Dieter is going to be one of the main characters. But
Yeah,
the fact that she was selfless in that sort of approach um, was shocking, if you ask me. I mean, like
mhm.
we just saw something like that was similar with Venom Let There Be Carnage, where Venom's like ex or Eddie Venom's ex, like Eddie's fiance, former ex, and her fiance were like they willingly went to the cops to get themselves arrested so they can let Venom escape as well as Eddie Brock.
Yeah,
And like, holy shit, I actually like that. You know, someone actually standing up for the one that's more likely to that's going to be necessary, even if they're like sort of um compromised in terms of like behavior. I mean, like I don't know if I mentioned this, but uh, like Eddie Brock and Venom being arrested or captured or detained may keep the world safe in terms of them not causing harm, but they're going to be needed to stop some sort of like evil force, like we saw with Carnage. So the lesser beings being involved with this sort of thing, like getting arrested to save their more necessary friend, is a big win, if you ask me.
um, yeah,
Yeah, and like considering the fact that we mentioned before that Gwendolyn seemed like the kind of person that would also pull the strings, and that was kind of an unexpected 180, yet felt like natural at the same time. It's like it was a bit of a character development for her to have that sort of approach, if you ask me. But yeah. Um, one last question would be, where to from here? So one last question will be, where to from here?
where to? Yeah. Well, of course, this helped us understand why Dieter was in the US, but I still want to know more. I still want to know if you're gonna reconnect at some time, if we're gonna get more characters to get explored within that team from Army of Dead, or maybe I don't know. I just also want to see the sequels. I want to see everything. That universe has me so hyped. I don't know why.
I think
Uh,
the reason why is because like Army of the Dead, like this sort of zombie verse is like nothing like it's no big IP that we just got. It's like brand new. I mean, like
mhm.
it's different from Marvel or DC where it's just IPs being used to reestablish a new IP or like the sort of like the MonsterVerse. Remember that from Universal that just got that pulled the plug on its own on the first movie just because it bombed.
Yeah.
Like, I think that what makes it interesting is the fact that we know we're going to get this sort of stuff soon because like Zach has a lot of faith in the stuff he makes, which is great. You know, he's not some sort of cowardly studio exec that just backs away just because they get like
No, no.
one negative review from someone that even has one minor nitpick, but otherwise loves the rest of the movie. Warner Brothers.
No, but Saki is a person with balls of steel. And also, I just want to say that Army of the Dead was even better as a startup universe than a movie itself. It was just perfect in that way. I don't know.
And best of all, like there's going to be a lot of crazy stuff that's going to come up in the future, um, from the loops to possible robot
Yeah,
zombies, aliens.
yeah, true. Whoa, forgot about that. Wow.
Yeah,
What the fuck,
like
Zach?
That's not out of context. Uh, Either way, like I look forward to it. This looks like it's going to be a lot of creative stuff to it, and um, Mr. Snyder, like I'm pretty sure you're not even watching this video, and pretty sure you think I don't that none of us exists, but I look forward to seeing the rest of your stuff very soon.
I do too.
Oh, and by the way,
Well,
hashtag restore the Snyderverse.
yeah. Restore the Snyderverse. It's about time. It's about
Next,
drive. It's about power. We stay hungry. We
we
devour.
devour.
Okay, let's move on
All
to
right,
the next topic.
which is Sailor Moon R, the second season of this very popular anime, and like once again, I'm going to mention this. I'll be commenting on the '90s dub version made by Optimum and involving Deke Entertainment, which not many people know this, by the way. But the first American dub wasn't even American; it's Canadian.
Huh.
Yeah, the voice actors
Like,
and the production was in Canada, which is kind of surprising if you ask me.
like Caillou.
Yeah, but this show ain't no Caillou, thank God. There is a character that gets on my nerves for a good while, but she's still better than Caillou. But we'll get to that in a bit. All right. So my thoughts on season one. Even when I talk about like the '90s dub, I still liked it. It was kind of like a nice show, change of pace from all the other stuff I've seen from my other interests, and I kind of admit that the first few episodes kind of have this sort of like program that I probably watched back then as a kid, which like, and when you have your VHS tapes and you watch them before you go to sleep, it kind of reminds you like the
Yeah.
cartoons I'd see back then from the '90s and 2000s. And then again, it is a '90s show, but like I had never saw the show when it first came out because either I wasn't born yet or I was too busy trying to learn how to stand up and say some words.
Yeah, I think that happens to everyone.
But yeah, I thought season one was pretty solid overall. Even if there were like some things I wish would be a bit better, but I still enjoyed it. Now, season two is where things get a little more crazy, shall we say.
How so or why?
This time we have two arcs. Now, the first arc, or for season one, the first arc was pretty much a build up to the team as they were able to go up against the generals of Queen Beryl. For season two, we focus on both the Doomtree arc, which was apparently an original arc that was made by Toei when Naoko, the character creator, like the creator of this franchise, was trying to come up with a continuation of her own for the manga, and the Dark Moon Clan, which was a second arc that takes place of these characters that come from the future and chasing after Small Lady, aka Rini, aka the future daughter of Neo Queen Serenity and King Endymion, who are pretty much future versions of Sailor Moon and Tuxedo Mask themselves.
Okay.
Holy crap, that was a lot to say.
Yeah, I do.
All right.
But Sailor Moon R, it is not because it is R rated.
Nope.
Why?
The R's involves like romance apparently, which is kind of like a
Oh,
prominent story arc for our titular heroine trying to get back to her boyfriend because of a destiny that they have. And basically, I'll say this right off the bat: everyone was revived for season two after the final battle from season one. But while the scouts got their memories back, Darien did not because he is not a Sailor Scout. Luna can't revive his memories, so he doesn't know about these events that happened, no matter how hard, especially Serena tries. However, a being known as the Moonlight Knight, not to be confused with Moon Knight, who was previously like unveiled for a Disney Plus show coming soon. Um, he pretty much shows up in lieu of Tuxedo Mask and fills in a similar role, which it turned out that's not actually the Darien that shows up whenever uh, the gang's in trouble, but it's just like a holographic projection of the guy himself before he finally combines with Darien to form Tuxedo Mask once again. Yeah, Darian's a weird one. Also, the Moonlight Knights, like like the appearance of him, like he looks kind of like I don't know how I say it, but he wore like white robes around him. No, not those kinds of white robes. But more like like something you'd wear in the desert, basically. Um, I don't know what the proper words are, and I don't want to like get it confused and upset the wrong people. I just don't know what the proper terminology is. But it wasn't his like suit and tie with top hats.
Don't be too careful, but be careful. I don't know.
But anyways, yeah. While they try to get his memories back, two villains show up, who turn out to be an extension of the Negaverse. They consist of Al and Alan, who are these like green alien looking guys and gals that are pretty much like absorbing energy for their tree because they need to survive by sucking up the energy from the human race. And they tend to do this every time. Um, it's definitely a nice way to distinct themselves from the sort of approach that we have with the villains or like the monsters of the week. Where in the first arc of season one, it was pretty much like characters trying to absorb energy from everybody when freaking like Jedi was around, while Nephi focused on one individual. And of course, Zoisite would do a similar approach, but with the like characters that had the silver, like the crystals. And Nephi didn't really do that much until like near the end of the story, mostly just trying to hunt down the Moon Princess. So yeah,
Mm.
absorbing energy might seem a little similar to what we got with season one, but at least there's a reason why they needed it, and it's because they need to survive. But as with a lot of villains that rely on energy, they don't know that, so the other people that need it. But their dumbasses think they're too disposable to give a fuck about him anyhow, which is why the Sailor Scouts need to stop them. To the truth,
Okay.
at first I didn't like the characters of Al and Alan, thinking that they're too stupid, think that they look like an incest couple when they pretend to be boyfriend and girlfriend, but in reality they're brother and sister. But even
That
when
usually happens with Japanese. I don't know why they kind of give hints that there is some incest, but actually
yeah,
not, and
yeah,
you feel weird.
apparently when they disguise themselves as humans, they pretend to be siblings when in reality they're like boyfriend and girlfriend when they're not disguising themselves. But these guys
Okay.
are I hated them at first. Like I thought they were pretty bad. Uh, but even then, they look too similar to each other, and I know that's part of their like sort of group, their race. But even then, they look like they are siblings even without the human disguises. But thankfully, they proved themselves to actually be like decent enemies. Uh, they weren't as annoying as I thought they'd be, thank God. But yeah, the way the like okay, so Alan wants to be with Serena. Basically, Al calls him out for that. But when Al gets out with wants to be with Darian, it's okay for her. Like those two are fucking hypocrites.
Mm-hmm.
And now they pretty much like end up paying for their actions when Serena enters in their like dorm and discovers like this like the Doomtree inside and starts causing havoc in the apartment that they live in, which is like
Okay.
pretty much like an example of the Joker saying that you get what you fucking deserve.
Yeah.
Thankfully, they get purified. Thankfully, um, which is good. Uh, After all that, we go into like, but during like okay, like after all that stuff, we go into the next arc, which involves like the Dark Moon Clan, a group of beings that pretty much try to take over Crystal Tokyo and the rest of the world because they seem to have gotten unfair treatment or something. Um, their stories make things even more complicated because they come from the future. They want to take advantage of taking over the future. They go to the past because Small Lady ends up like stealing the Silver Crystal, and of course, um, needs to try and find some help. So brace yourselves. It's going to get super confusing. First,
Okay.
like when they show up on the present time, the past version of Tokyo, small lady shows up and like confuses both Serena and Darian because they don't know who she is, and they think she's just this weird girl. But she apparently somehow brainwashed Serena's family into thinking that she is like their relative, which in a sense is true, but not. But like that she pretends to be a cousin instead of being like revealing who she is in reality. She causes like a bit of havoc with Serena, which typical like younger individual, like younger relative or sibling versus older sibling, and older sibling or relative gets like called out for it even though they didn't mean anything. That sort of
Mm-hmm.
nonsense. Uh, Eventually, like the two try to like bond with each other better over time. But the second episode after the debut, apparently, like the interactions that Darian receives has with like Rini results in him getting like these like warnings about he needs to protect Serena by basically breaking up with her because of the future. And that arc, that sort of breakup arc, sucks. Like,
Typical dramatic,
yeah,
romantic.
oh my god, like, bro, you should have seen the way I was like pretty much like groaning myself when we had to go through all that sort of stuff. The thing is that like, okay, if it lasted for like nearly like what 10 episodes or something. I lost track. But the thing
It's
is
still a
that
lot.
it's like he pretty much like he doesn't mean it, but at the same time he could have like worded it better by saying stuff like, I get these weird visions of something that's going on because he too has magical powers to some extent. He could have said I have these weird
Mm-hmm.
visions. We need to think of something, or maybe try and distance himself by saying, "Oh, I got to be busy with something. I'll catch you later." Of course, Serena's going to be nosy about it, but at least make it so where, but at least don't try and like straight up say, "Okay, we're breaking up. All right, I don't want to be with you anymore," and break her poor heart. Ah, stupid Darian. What a fucking idiot. And the thing is
Okay.
that like he pretty much like tries to stick around with like Rini because Rini likes Darian a lot more than um, she does Serena, and that pretty much makes Serena assume that Darian cares about Rini, which not like let's be honest here, like the age difference between the two is just no.
Mm. Okay.
Like throughout the breakup arc, um, we get quite a few stories that involve um, like Serena trying to win back Darian, as well as Darian like having regrets about the sort of stuff. And at one point, he starts realizing the fact that maybe I shouldn't have done this, and as well as around the same time, Serena realizes that she too gets these bad visions, and that's when it clicked to them. Oh, okay, let's put two and two together. Although let's be real here, Darian should have like done this right away instead of like trying to make her think that she isn't worth it.
Mm-hmm. All
Yeah,
right.
way to go, GG Darian, dumbass. But yeah, like after all this sort of stuff, um, after all that sort of stuff, like we thankfully have nothing to worry about for the breakup arc. They're pretty much done with everything, and they realize that yeah, let's like we can finally be together because they're sticking together no matter what, and it's good. But actually, I did a bit of accounting from uh, from remembering all this sort of stuff. Um, the fact that the arc lasts for nearly like what, 15 episodes, it seems. I think I don't know, maybe
Okay.
more than that. Jesus fucking Christ!
Wow.
Yeah, it's
So
painful.
yeah, usually I can stand that if it's shorter, but 15 episodes becomes tedious.
Thankfully, like the episodes afterwards were pretty entertaining overall. The episodes like that weren't so much necessary for the plot themselves for and season two were actually pretty good, I'd say. I liked I kind of liked the episodes where, like, for the first arc, I should mention, at one point Serena can't use her moon tiara anymore, and at one point her crystal gets damaged when she encounters like one of the monsters. So Queen Serenity shows up in a vision and restores her powers, and she now has like a new transformation thingy. Um, and as a result, she now has like a slightly enhanced suit design. Honestly, like the Sailor Moon formula she has is like not that different from the first one. Season three, apparently she gets like a replacement for the red jewel on her tiara or something. But yeah, that
Okay.
was kind of important for the season one arc, as well as like the power ups that the characters get. Like for season one, Ray gets a power up that involves her trying to like not give up or not feel too doubtful about herself after a lot of stress she had for a music festival, or um, like Mina, Sailor Rena is knowing that even if like she may not be in the safest of spots when she comes to like going against evil and protecting everyone else, her devotion towards the mission is what made her victorious in battle, as well as earning her a new power up. And I like this sort of
Okay.
stuff. Like it makes the
Oh,
characters like interesting to delve into more and more, and it makes the power ups much more rewarding.
yeah, that's usually dope.
As for the more fillery stories of season the second arc, it's a little more serialized in this case. Every once in a while, we get into some more like filler stuff, like when Amy, aka Mercury, like decides if she needs to leave or not before she decides now I got to help my friends. Or how about uh, when Serena has to like cook up some curry for Rini's school, and that kind of helps them bond a bit better. Yeah,
Hmm.
like the filler in the series is kind of like shown to be either helpful or not, but I think season two's filler actually worked a bit better. I'd say, especially when it comes
Okay.
to actually memorable episodes. Like after the breakup arc, we get into No Thanks Nurse Venus, which has everyone like sick, and except
Is
for
it
yeah, except for
more of a
Mina.
comedic episode?
What?
Yeah.
Yeah, everyone pretty much gets sick with the flu, except for Mina and Rini. And it was funny. Although I will say that kind of got annoying in retrospect to see people do like the COVID references. It's like we get it, like
Oh,
this sort of thing. It's like well, you already know. You guys definitely abused this sort of episodes like plot for COVID awareness.
yeah. I even remember that Cowboy Bebop have a similar episode. So, you know how Japanese kind of repeat formats in their animes? I
Pretty
think
much,
that's common too.
yeah. But after like the more filler episodes, we get into the more serialized stuff, which involves like the
Uh-huh.
remaining Moon Clan enemies becoming good, while a few of them like end up dying in battle, especially when they betray Wise Man, who some theorize might be a revived version of Jedi, one of the first antagonists we encounter. Although that may not be 100% confirmed, but in the 90s dub, some theorize that's the case because of the similar voice actor or the same voice actor being used.
Mm-hmm.
I'd say it works out quite well if you ask me.
It does.
Additionally,
And mhm.
uh, another thing that's worth mentioning for uh, the episodes that like the last few episodes were apart from being serialized definitely give us some perspective about the future of these characters from like
Okay.
how their lives are going to be like basically Sailor Moon becomes the new queen of the earth, and she helps restore it after it went through an apocalypse of sorts where like might have been an ice age I think for centuries, and she revives it using the silver crystal and her powers, and then Rini starts to feel like bad because she thinks everyone neglects her, but she ends up getting brainwashed by Wiseman. and becomes the um, is it the Wicked Lady? Yeah, I think in Japan they called her Black Lady, but Wicked Lady I think is like more sensible for like being a villain type character, and yeah, like she's definitely the more evil sort of character. It's like going further beyond like her supposed bad memories she had, even though she's just a misunderstood child.
Uh,
You see how complicated this stuff is with season two,
yeah, I'm trying to connect the dots, but I find it hard because, of course, I didn't watch it.
and because of just how so much happens at once.
Yeah. Hmm.
Uh, think,
So,
thankfully, the devotion that the characters have to save the day helps them win, and like Wise Man gets taken down, and Rini returns to to the future with everyone else now that she found the silver crystal from her time period. It was kind of touching. It was great to watch sort of episodes, but why go from a very epic moment or epic finale to a clip show afterwards? Not even a good clip show.
oh fuck.
Yeah, they basically have like the characters talking about and talking over the screen with like redubbed footage from older episodes and hinting to season three with like the characters such as Dr. Tomo and the Outer Scouts, Uranus and Neptune, which we don't see until years later, I think, for the US and Canada and the like. But yeah, a clip show isn't really the best way to end off in an episode. It's not even a good one. It's not like they're watching the TV or looking back on their events and they like in the screen cuts to a flashback. It's just a dull type of flashback or it's just, hey, check this out from past footage.
Yeah. Okay. So yeah, those are the typical recap episodes that are camouflaged as, well,
Yeah.
remember this, like that.
Yeah, it's pretty much like, oh hey guys, like remember when we did this? Which one of us should be the leader? It's or like, oh hey, I got these weird visions for season three, but yeah, the approach of it wasn't the best. I mean, Japan loves to do clip shows for everything. I don't know which shows don't use clip shows, but it's kind of annoying when you have to when they do it in certain ways. Like a good example would be if they're trying to like reflect on past events and see how they can improve themselves, or like try and put two and two together for what kind of threat they're going up against. That would make much more sense.
Yeah.
But yeah, apart from all that sort of stuff, like the characters do improve over time, like in terms of character development. They earn new powers. I think like we get to see like more character development for Ray as she becomes more like protective of her friends, even if she may seem like the sort of like tough on the outside but kind on the inside sort of character. Mina I think gets like a better character development. We get to see her more goofy side. In season one, she was the more like the more supposed more cool type character. Just because everyone was like looking for her, she seemed like a mysterious individual. But here they fleshed her out a bit more, and we get to see her clumsier side, especially when she fucked up in nearly everything. When she was a nurse, and she was like, "Oh, sorry about that. I didn't mean it." She's well intentioned, but stupid at the same time. But I think in later episodes, we get to see her act clumsier and clumsier. And yeah, the villains I think were pretty much all right. Well, the first group of villains I thought were pretty um, dumb for their appearances. But yeah, everything else has been pretty solid.
Cool.
Now, before I talk about the movie, uh, but yeah, um, sorry about that. Someone sent me a message.
Oh, don't worry.
Um, yeah, someone asked me like, someone called me Mr. Comedian. Okay. Anyways, yeah. Before we talk about the movie, um, because there was a movie that was tied in for it, receipts for R. Um, apparently this show had trouble like getting good ratings in the US. I mean, Canada had no problems with it because the show was released in Canada, no problem. But I think the United States had trouble with, well, part of the fact that it's like an anime and they weren't used to airing anime like that as well as they would with Pokemon or Dragon Ball or something like that. Um, the audience they were trying to target to was inconsistent with like the audience that actually saw the show. That and they put it in syndication and they put it in way earlier time, apparently 5 a.m. or 5:30.
But that never works. I don't get it. Why do they do that?
I have no idea, honestly. Like they just made it so where these characters like it's weird. No one wakes up that early for a show. I mean, okay, maybe you had some like early, like mid '90s anime fans that were obsessed with these characters. I have no idea, honestly. Like I said, I never grew up with the show back then because I was pretty much either not yet born or trying to learn how to stand up, saying "mommy" and "daddy." But yeah, like I don't get it either. It's just confusing if you ask me. But future reruns on the USA Network helped make the show get more views. But it wasn't until the show moved to Cartoon Network for the Tsunami block where it got more attention, way more attention, I'd say, and a much more appropriate time slot. Hell, I think they put in like the ladies first like gimmick where they let the ladies watch the show first, but of course there'll also be guys that watch the show as well. And yeah, as a result of that, they got to see the series in like with much better time, and as a result, they got to go to season 3 and 4 no problem because the ratings were high. Um, and however, like Deke pretty much like their license expired with Optimum, so they moved to another company, Cloverway, who would dub the rest of the series from there. But that's a story for another day because
Another day.
yeah, we're gonna talk about the R movie. Um, like I've seen the movie, but I'm not gonna go over too much of the like the way they released it. I mean, I think they put out like these VHS tapes of this of like the movie with the subs, and then they put in like an edited version for English audiences where they have the original names, and then they combined the two where it's the English voice actors but with the Japanese like uncut Japanese stuff. And first up, talk about the movie. I think it's a solid movie. It's an hour long, not much to talk about. It's like an extended episode, but I already knew that going in. Um, I will say that the visuals do look gorgeous for the movie. Like like did I mention before talking about the animation for the 1986 Transformers movie? How much better it was than the animation for the G1 cartoon.
Yeah, that's usually the case, but I don't know how was this one because it went from 92 to 93. How much was the change?
Well, um, like for the for like the animation of the movies themselves, like it was a massive leap in terms of like quality. Um, and it's especially prominent with like the 1986 Transformers movie because the G1 episodes are pretty like okay for the animation, like not terrible but not like mind blowing either. They had a lot of animation errors, whereas the '86 movie was gorgeous, especially on Blu-ray. Vibrant colors, sharp animation quality, more fluid, and like character transformations. it was so good, especially in the widescreen format. Whereas, and as for and a similar thing can be said for Sailor Moon 2. I mean, they had way fewer animation errors. Of course, the show had like distinct animation. It was more comedic than G1's animation, and both were animated by Toei, by the way. But yeah, the difference in animation, like the leap of it, was just like significant with the aforementioned vibrant colors and whatnot. Uh, Thankfully, the fact that they made brand new footage for stuff like the stock footage, transformations, and attacks um, made it better, if you ask me.
Dude, I'm not even joking. If you wanna, you can keep talking about Sailor Moon R, and I will clean this up, and then I'll be back for
Yeah,
Avengers.
I had to cut it out. I had to cut this stuff out. Oh my god. Oh, okay. But yeah, like the animation itself is actually not too shabby, like for the series itself. But the movies make it even better, if you ask me. And well, with like the aesthetics in them, like they have a different sort of aesthetics feel to them, where it's more high quality, it's more premium, it's more like exclusive, and that's the sort of thing that surprised me with the animation style for The Promise of a Rose. But the movie itself, the story, we get to see a bit of a flashback for Darian where he had a childhood that was pretty lonely, especially when he met a friend that was named Fiore in the past, because both of them were like orphans. And yeah, that's sort of why Darian might seem like a bit of a cold guy at first, especially since not only did he lose his like former life back then, but he also lost his parents in his new life. And Fury himself has like a strong bond with Darian. Perhaps they might some would consider them to be like more than just friends, but they might be gay for each other, which in and of itself isn't a bad thing. But the problem is that Darian's simpy ass was obsessed with trying to get to Darian, where he ignores the fact that he got a girlfriend named Serena and he's upset about it. Like, what an entitled bastard. He's like, oh my god, you're with this chick. How could you do this to me? Never mind the fact that like you probably moved on from me for so long and got yourself more independent. I hate you for this. I hate you for this, you fucking prick. And the dumbest thing is the fact that like his dumbass started to cause havoc while everyone else was like talking about how they wanted to have like a boyfriend and girlfriend, which is kind of like theme of like loyalty and relationships for Promise of a Rose is like lessons of sorts. But Fiore's dumbass like started to do what Alan Allen did, basically absorbing their energy, the humans, but this time using them for his own uses. And as a result of this, like everyone tries to stop him, but they end up getting their asses beaten. Um, Darian has Succeeded Mask steps in to save Sailor Moon herself, but like, he ends up getting injured and taken away by Fiore. So now the scouts have to go to space and look for the sort of rock that he's in, which was kind of like a cool scene that they went there. And as a result of this, they have to go up and uh, like stop him. They initially struggle at first, like in terms of stopping him with the combat and the powers, but it wasn't until they realized that the abilities that wasn't like the powers themselves that would stop him, but instead like Serena's loyalty to her friends, and that made poor Fiore realize, oh shit, like what the hell's going on with me? I feel so like warm and fuzzy on the inside. What the fuck? Like I think that was a kind of clever thing to do, but perhaps he could have noticed that before he started to attack other people, being his entitled looking ass. And at one point, the scouts start to realize that the ship that, or like the rock that they were on, may end up causing damage to the Earth if it strikes on them. But as a result of this, they had to try and use their powers. However, they're all pretty weak because they've done a lot of bad, like damage in battle, and they need to use what they can in order to win. And Serena, even in spite of her being like tired from the battle, contributes to this simply by like going into the fight and, well, not necessarily the fight, more so like helping to stop the meteorite from like destroying the Earth, and uses the like the silver crystal from like the transformation brooch to help. But then the scene that came that made me hate Fiora even more shows up, where like his dumbass tried to stop like her from winning, saving the day. But one, not only did it result in him getting his dumbass realizing the fact that Serena once met Darien, which you know that itself is kind of weird because they seem like they never met before, but apparently they did. Which yeah, apparently that has to do with the fact that the characters themselves, um, like or the movies themselves, may not be 100% canon to the series because that's sort of debatable depending on the sort of the sort of depending on the sort of message or like continuity there is. I mean, it's kind of inconsistent overall, but it's even worse when you consider the fact that most of these movies are kind of like that in some ways. But yeah, it's just weird. But I think the worst part, even more, is the fact that at one point, as a result of this, when he tried to grab the crystal, he ends up like corrupting the suit or the scout fit that's to the Moon War, and in the show specifically for Serena, um, like her outfit like her normal like attire would pretty much just disintegrate along dissolve off screen as she starts to turn into like this sort of like outline of herself with all these like transformation sort of colors to them for the stock footage, while her uniform is manifested from like these like holographic ribbons that turn into the outfit. But the problem is that like in some instances you can kind of see that when they disappear, for like in between that and her clothes appearing, that she pretty much has nothing on her. And at one point in the movie, um, her uniform turns into a bunch of ribbons that are flowing in space along with her hair as they're about to brace for impact. And she's pretty much left bare. And yeah, I fucking hated that so much. Like, because fucking Fiore tried to make us look tough. And it's like, why would you do this to her? God damn it. You fucking sicko nerd looking ass. I, I need a drink of water after this. I need to give myself some water because like Fiore is a fucking idiot. I mean, I should mention this as well. Apart from him being kind of like not as sure, I don't think he's 100% perverted for that, but like maybe he didn't know, but like the way he approached that sort of thing was like, haha, and I have stopped you. But thankfully, Serena's able to like stand her guard and not only make him disintegrate as well as like the flower that was corrupting him, but she was also able to have those ribbons turn into her Serenity outfit, her Moon Princess attire, and they're able to um, stop the meteorite from saving the day. Although she ends up like losing her consciousness, is temporarily dead until Fiore's spirit realizes, oh hey, like uses power to revive her, and um, Tuxedo Mask uses the power to revive her, and by kissing her, and kind of like your typical stories of like Sleeping Beauty, where princess gets awakened by a kiss of a prince. It happens. So, whew, yeah. long description for a movie that's kind of like 1 hour long. It's more like an extended TV episode. But even in spite of those like things that were nitpicky, or in the case of like Fiore, stupidity, because Fiore is stupid. I mean, he's like, Darian, I want you with me, but he ends up getting him hurt in the process at times. Way to go, stupid. But yeah, like even with that sort of nonsense, at least I could say that the movie itself is enjoyable for what it is. You know, it's no like high tier movie that's in the same level as Akira. It's basically like a TV movie quality of sorts. Better animation, uh, more things you can do that the series wouldn't have you do, especially if it's not canon, and stuff like that. But hashtag Fury sucks. He's dumb. He's lame. He's an idiot. And yeah, what an idiot. Hashtag fuck Fury. Hashtag Fury sucks. Hashtag Fury is great at losing. I mean, okay, like the gay part makes sense because he and um had feelings for Darian. It seemed, but come on, if you're gonna confess your feelings, so like don't try to like be upset at him. Like you should know that for a fact that he wouldn't remember you for so long, and he's not even gonna remember you because this movie isn't even canon. But yeah, overall, I'd say season two of R was pretty not bad. Like, I didn't hate it, but there are things that were kind of like annoying to deal with. But otherwise, when we got to the good stuff, it was pretty good, I'd say. And I'm quite honestly happy to move on from all that sort of stuff, the bad stuff, especially the breakup arc. And yeah, one last thing to mention is the fact that there was one episode that was skipped over. It's another beach episode, and it pretty much revolved around like the scouts and Rini going to a bit of a dinosaur island. And yeah, I have no problems with them cutting it out because it doesn't really add anything to the story. But it kind of amuses me that for the first two seasons they removed any beach related episodes, despite the fact that most anime nowadays, like every anime, is required by law hot spring or beach episode, which is yeah, typical trope. But that's pretty much it.
That's still a lot of process.
I know, right? Like season two made things a lot more confusing than season one, which was pretty straightforward. So maybe season three will be smoother from there. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll see.
But until then, let's talk about Avengers: Earth's Mightiest Heroes. Yes,
Holy shit, man. That is my childhood. I don't know what yours.
I mean my childhood first had like the Marvel shows from Fox Kids, which were later brought into uh, Jetix, which
Mhm.
was so good. I mean, like the fact that they had a lot of like great writing to them, that the animation was very solid overall. I mean, some were better than others, like the Spider-Man, X-Men, and the Hulk shows were the strongest ones. Iron Man season one was kind of weak, and the Fantastic Four show was too campy.
Yeah.
But yeah, like there was a lot to love from the '90s Marvel shows.
Yep. But specifically this show, it had a lot of components that made it great. Like, I love the aesthetic of it. So fucking good. The characters left the bar so high because I remember that, well, when I was a child or a preteen, I watched that show and then I watched Avengers. And of course, I loved it because, I mean, it is seeing your heroes in the big screen. But I was always like, I still prefer the Iron Man from the animated show, and I still prefer the Captain America from the animated show, and I still prefer the Ant Man from the animated show. It's like they did things so excellent that I just, up until today, I just can't forget about it.
Uh, I kind of agree with that as well, especially since, like, in retrospect, I have a lot more respect for this show more than I do the subsequent stuff because, like, it's not a massive downgrade, but let's be honest here. The Marvel shows under Disney XD have been pretty lackluster. I mean, like, I don't have too many high expectations for a kids show, but at times you can prove yourself that you're more than just a show meant for your target audience. So older fans can watch it too. I mean,
Yeah,
remember Transformers Prime
yeah,
or Star Wars: The Clone Wars? Like those shows know how to be great for their older audiences.
yep.
Uh, After Earth's Mightiest Heroes, we got ourselves like a lot of other stuff that wasn't terrible, but wasn't great either. Well, apart from some stuff that got really bad, like the 2017 Spider-Man show.
Yeah. And Ultimate Spider-Man was fine. It had some great episodes, but
Yeah,
overall, it was
we'll review that later
okay.
on.
Yeah, but well, we can't mention the Avengers, this Avengers show without mentioning Spectacular Spider-Man. That it was on par. Those two shows so fucking excellent. Like that
Yeah,
was it was around the age that I was also watching Young Justice. So it was basically like
the perfect
man,
trinity of
like
the late
yeah,
2000s shows.
the superheroes were at their peak. That was amazing.
Yeah, and I'd say it's like the perfect trio of or trinity of like late 2000s, early 2010s shows for comic book characters.
Yeah.
So like, yeah, and apart from all that, like, what do you think of the stories?
Well, a lot of the stories kind of anticipated to what was going to do Marvel Studios, well, the universe in cinemas, um, with specifically Ultron. I remember that I really liked that. Secret Invasion, that whole arc of Secret Invasion in the animated show was mind blowing. I remember being so tense, like, and all the character interactions and relationships, and man, it was always so exciting. And I don't remember if they got to the part where the Infinity Gems appeared. I think they did.
Yeah,
Did
like
they?
perhaps they did at one point. It's been kind of a while
Yeah.
since I saw like every episode, but it's still like solid either way.
Yeah. Uh, Well, I mostly watched it on TV, so I guess I watched um, episodes sporadically, like not pretty connected, but it was still something so unique like at that time.
Yep, and like one of the things that made it work was the fact that you already mentioned the character interactions, and I thought they were done up quite well. I mean,
Mhm.
like, remember how characters used to be more than just one-liners, but they actually felt like they had genuine character interactions, like personalities bouncing off of each other,
Yeah.
using their powers to assist
Mm.
one another, and making the most out of like what they have.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, it was great to see that
Yeah.
with like everybody that was involved, the core team, especially once we got to meet up with like Captain America as well as like Black Panther and Hawkeye.
Yeah. Whoa. The arc of, or well, the tiny fragment of episodes that were destined to build the character of Black Panther were just so fucking good in Wakanda. I remember those and feeling like they were some of my favorite episodes. And
Yeah,
also Hulk. I remember Hulk, Bruce Banner, being such a good addition. Like, of course, then we watched Avengers, and yeah, yeah. I mean, we can all agree that in the first Avengers, Hulk was pretty cool.
yeah. Unfortunately,
Then,
we saw how the Hulk turned out, and with the recent Disney Plus Day thingy, nope,
that was so bad.
they butt fucked him so badly. Ay, ay, ay.
He looks worse by the day. I feel so bad but well, it was Hulk. I just remember him being one of my favorites. Yeah, absolutely. And well, I also really liked the Wasp. I think if I now look back in retrospective, I would say that she was the best character, surprisingly.
I'd say the same thing too.
Yeah,
I mean, most
she
people
was like
like
complex. Yeah.
yeah, most people went for her just because she looked hot. Whereas I liked her character because she was a very well thought out individual and
Mm-hmm.
one that wasn't like just for the looks, but also prove herself to be a great addition to the team nonetheless.
Yeah. Yeah, man. And I also like a lot the relationship she had with Ant-Man. It actually felt genuine and it had its problems, and you rooted for them. But at the same time, you could understand both. It was so deep at times for an animated show, and I think that's the karma that these animated shows have is that inevitably, when they treat their audiences seriously, they will get um, canceled.
Yeah. I hate to jump into the topic too soon, but this show got replaced by United They Stand immediately after. Wait, not United They Stand. Avengers Assemble. God damn it! I thought about another Avengers show because I was thinking about the '90s stuff. And like, oh yeah, these characters are also in United They Stand because I wanted to do a comparison between them, but I mixed up the names.
Assemble.
Avengers Assembled was just kind of disappointing. Not kind of pretty disappointing. Me, like, I get it. They wanted to capitalize on the success of the Avengers movies. They made it very close to it, yet still not in canon to it, which is okay. But it's like it's just a cartoon version of the Avengers show. You know, like
Oh, that was disappointing. I remember.
I mean, I don't mind. Like, okay, they can do whatever they want, but like, I kind of got a little annoyed in retrospect when they tried to mimic the style of the MCU so closely for the other stuff. It's
Yeah,
it's like
it wasn't
everywhere.
only with that. They also did it with the Guardians of the Galaxy animated show. I don't know if you remember that, but
I
it was
remember
pretty
that
awful.
bits of it. I don't remember much of it.
Mm.
It's like
What you see?
it's just so much. It's so similar to it, and they just try to mimic it as if they think that's the only Marvel that exists. Um,
Yeah.
at least with Sony when Spider Man was involved with like the Sony stuff, the movies and the TV shows are around at the time were different from one another.
Yeah, yeah.
On top of that, there's
They're
also the Ultimate Comics as well.
true, true. I think that they overly trusted their own tone and they didn't want to go away from that. And I think that's their worst mistake at the same time as economically is their best virtue. So I don't know what kind of balance they can do. For example, now Eternals, they say that it in tonality, it's the most different MCU movie, and it is not getting received that well. So, man, I don't know.
Yeah, which is kind of amusing. Like you would expect, like the critic journals just like going and see stuff like Marvel movies out. We like it a lot. It's the best thing ever. Kiss on
Yeah,
my ass.
robotic.
Buy the product. Buy product. Consume. 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 Stuff like that.
Yeah,
Though
kind of makes me think that Chloe Zhao is maybe the reason because she's a person of color and maybe they don't like that too much. I don't know. The critics, because we all know that the critics are bigoted and racist and stupid. So I wouldn't get surprised from that. Not from the audience in general.
yeah, no surprise to critics that go from seeing stuff like oh, fight for diversity or like stand by the minorities, then it turned out to be like fucking scum.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I hate seeing that sort of shit. It's like fucking it's pathetic.
It is.
Aside from all that, um, we also get to see stuff like hey, are we reviewing the Eternals or Avengers in like Earth's Mightiest Heroes. Oh no,
Uh,
we lost track again.
we lost track again. No, we were going to talk about the Avengers show, but oh yeah, I mentioned the Eternals as an example of going slightly out of the formula, and they encounter a bad reality. Whereas when they kept on that formula with even the animated shows, they 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 why I mean they were successful. So looking back, this Avengers show, the Earth's Mightiest Heroes, um, you kind of look at it as an exception because everyone agrees that even though it was canceled, it was fucking fantastic.
Yeah, and I think we can like come to the conclusion that apart from like them thinking that the show was doing as well, they also believe that like they wanted to go for the MCU approach with the story, like making it look very close to it. Which let's be honest, it's gotta go. Like I'm done with it. Can we go for
Mhm.
like people could say a similar thing about like Transformers Prime looking too close to the movies, but at least they changed up the cast. Um, yeah, the aesthetics are also very different as well. Like there's an amalgamation of ideas. On top of that, that wasn't around for so long because there was also different aesthetics for different takes on the series. Like your comic books are like modern day G1 stuff. The movies were very realistic. Your cartoons varied stuff a lot. The video games also varied stuff a bit as well. Like it's no problem. Apart from nowadays when they try to make everything look so evergreen except for the movies, which can do whatever they want. But yeah, the fact that they try to make itself so close to the um like the MCU style was kind of like sad because I kind of missed when the shows would look different from the movies, as mentioned before, and the comics as well to some extent, because it proved that
Yeah.
to like for the most part, a series like Spider-Man or a series like Batman can be different from what we would get from one another.
Don't you miss when superheroes in those animated shows looked so big? I know it is unrealistic, but they looked so big, and you felt they, you felt their presence in those shows. And now they are kind of lame. Not even with their size. Of course, that wasn't what mattered, but also with their style. It
Yeah,
is just so dull.
yeah,
And
like
also with this Avengers show, I loved so much how thick the lines were. It felt so comic book like.
yeah, and at least
The,
the lines are thick enough so you can at least make out stuff without making it seem too without going too thick. Um,
yeah,
Another example of an issue like this would be like modern day anime where the animation itself, sure, it's in HD, but it's kind of like puts me to sleep because it doesn't seem as like refined. It looks kind of cheap,
yeah,
with a
yeah,
few,
yeah,
with,
yeah.
with a few exceptions here and there, of course. But as for the Avengers, like yeah, I prefer the older animation style. I mean, you can make your lines thin for some stuff like Spectacular Spider-Man, but they make up for it with unique character designs.
True, true, true. Damn, dude, it had a lot of it has a lot of things to talk about, but I think what is most important is to mention how impactful it was at that time and how much we miss those type of shows that actually grabbed those characters and gave them interpretations that were serious and were um,
Inspiring.
essential. Yeah, they were essentially inspiring. Exactly. You wanted to be those characters, and at the same time, you looked them at the distance and you enjoyed them. I think that balance was perfect.
Right. And it made even more sense when you consider stuff like the fact that like people always say stuff like, "Oh, nowadays it's all about the money," but you didn't get that feeling back then because at least you get a feeling that
No,
there's people that knew how to write something. Whereas you look at nowadays, instead of just wigs being involved with like cheapening stuff or writers that exist just so they can get some clout off of a property, but turn out to be pretty annoying. um, Starbucks looking ass people.
Yeah. Oh
Like
man.
you saw the
Do you,
guy
do
from.
you do you remember the theme song,
Yeah, it's pretty good. I dug it.
dude? It was so great.
It's just a sign of like the fact that they knew how to make something seem dynamic. They were making you like excited for it. And my favorite theme song was probably like for a TV show of a superhero series is probably Spectacular Spider-Man's theme,
Oh
just
yeah.
because like they knew how to make it distinct. They weren't trying to go for like the same sort of like classic Spider-Man theme. It has its own identity to it, and it has probably more identity than the Earth's Mightiest Heroes theme, but Earth's Mightiest Heroes theme is still good for like what it has to provide, and
Yeah.
it definitely makes you like want to watch the show more often, and more importantly, it kept you hooked. Well, that sort of sounded redundant, but more importantly, it had its own feel to it.
Yeah. Dude, now that I'm thinking of it, they adapted so many things. Like it had Doctor Doom, it had Galactus, it had Kang. Wow, it just brought everything into the table.
Yep, and that was from a time period where Marvel Comics was able to do what it could without being compromised by Disney, just because the latter didn't have the rights to the X Men or Fantastic Four. Uh,
Hmm.
I remember when we had to deal with the lack of presents for them. It was just
Dude.
so it was just so insufferable because they killed off the Fantastic Four around the time their movie came out, and they barely did much for like the X Men characters. I mean, wouldn't you want your like X Men characters like even though you're marketing like uh like even though you can't market the X Men movies because those are Fox at the time, wouldn't you at least want to make take advantage of their hype and putting him in your show? I mean, like an X Men cartoon from Disney XD wouldn't seem as likely because you don't have a movie under Disney. But why not put them in more episodes or put them in a video game more
Hmm.
often?
Yeah, they were underused. It was like it felt like a waste.
Yeah, and it felt even more painful when the fact that like Lego Marvel Superheroes has like all these Marvel characters you would need. It was great. And then you go in 2012 or like 2015 with Lego Avengers, and yeah, you could skip that one if you want, no problem. Then you get excited for Lego Marvel Superheroes 2, and then you find out it's just nothing but time travel variants of all these other characters, but no X Men or Fantastic Four.
Dude, those were some dark times.
Yeah, I mean, sure, fine enough for Disney to make money off of a property they never even created, but it's sad for the fans that actually wanted to see the characters they love get more presentation like they did back then. I mean, it'd be just as bad if like Spider Man had his presence shafted so badly
Yeah. I
because
lost the respect for that character, and he was my whole my my teenage years were dedicated to Spider-Man and his comics, and now I'm just so disappointed.
yeah, that's a story for another time when we get into stuff like the Disney cartoons or Disney XD Spider-Man shows, as well as that series of MCU movies involving Spidey.
Yeah, kind of masochists because we do not enjoy talking about the shows. We actually suffer, but we do it anyways.
Yeah, but if we're going upwards and onwards, I have to say that Earth's Mightiest Heroes is a great show overall, and one that proves the fact that they knew how to make a great show without either trying to make it so close to the MCU or making it seem pretty stale overall. It's a reminder of the fact that we can go back to these times and enjoy stuff like that. Honestly, the closest example of it has to be Invincible, even though that's like a very different demographic.
Yeah, yeah. I actually think you hit the nail with that comparison. Absolutely.
And like, not every show has to be dark or serious, but at least make it engaging. Superhero. You can make a show that's like comedic as well. Like bring back Superhero Squad. I mean, that's a good way to make a comedic show because the comedy of that series was done properly.
Yeah, I think the main problem with the shows nowadays from the animations of Disney is that they have a lot of exposition and they barely let you think. Like you can't imagine what may happen or might have happened before or what is going on behind the scenes. There's no behind the scenes. It is just what they show you. And it is just what they express to you. And that's it. You just have to sit there and listen and stay completely
Yeah, like it's
no,
not that
like
satisfying. It's just
no.
like it's just disappointing to say the least. And I
Mm,
can honestly say that that sums up my thoughts on United They Stand, as well as more importantly, Avengers Assemble. Again, I don't know why I brought in United They Stand. Actually, I think I know why. Because that show and Avengers Assemble are both pretty mediocre.
no. Yeah.
And by the way, for those who don't know, United They Stand is the Fox Kids show that was around. Um, that was back when they weren't doing as well with their shows as they did earlier in the years. Which, hey, sums up a lot of stuff from comic books nowadays, like the MCU, the DCEU, and the Arrowverse.
Yeah.
Hey, consistency. Now that's something we get nowadays, not with the comic arcs.
Nope. Oh,
And since we're talking about Disney, the last thing we can talk about is Monsters Inc.
some positive Disney product, which is actually more Pixar.
Yeah,
But yeah,
and honestly, calling it product just seems kind of disrespectful to it because
yeah.
you don't
I
get.
was thinking exactly that while I was saying product. It was like,
Yeah,
but
like
yeah,
like it's way less of a product than something we get nowadays. I mean, like, I know people
it,
are obsessed with like the current state of like Pixar, where like stuff like Luca and whatnot. But I miss when we used to have these creative appearances for these characters. They're like unique, how they're memorable, and how creative everything was.
yeah, yeah. I made a mistake because more than a product, it is a part of my heart. Monsters Inc. was, if not the movie that I watched the most as a kid, one of the movies that I watched the most, even more than Toy Story, I would say. I just loved it. I love the fatherhood that Sally kind of has. I love how well the friendship work. I loved all all the environment with the monsters and how fucking creative they were. They always had one quirky smart joke to give you back then. It was like you didn't even wait for it, but it came, and you were. It was
Yeah,
just delightful.
like just everything
So
about it
delightful.
was done properly,
Mm-hmm.
and more importantly, it all manages to be done up as like efficiently. Like and everyone knew how to work on something, and it's all like solid overall. I mean, remember when we used to have stuff like the uh like the way they wrote their characters. I mean, they feel like they come from another world, and it made them very interesting.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
nowadays, you pretty much have like characters that feel like they're too similar to one another. But
yeah, yeah.
uh,
We do. They actually all characters now they feel like a copycat of a previous one,
yeah,
and I think that what happened back then, and this is why we remember so well these animated movies, is that it had a direct competition with 2D animation. You know what I mean? It
mm-hmm,
was like uh, the rising of 3D animation, and they were actually trying to explore and be with technique different and try to find new solutions and to express stories in a different way. And all these Pixar movies, not only did that, but they also had very talented people behind their stories. So once you uh, like connect all of that, and once you make a great team, you got movies like this. You got movies like Finding Nemo. You got movies like Monsters Inc., like Toy
Yeah.
Story,
Yes.
and and they actually became something important of your life.
Yeah. Like,
You could you could project yourself to something and feel good
yes.
and learn.
Big brain moment. Big brain moment
Yeah.
right there. Like, I used to have a lot more attachment to those films than I do something like The Good Dinosaur or Inside Out or Luca, because or Onward, because like they feel very Pixar like. Well, not the
Mhm.
examples I mentioned, but the examples you mentioned, like Finding Nemo, Toy Story, Monsters Inc. I'd even argue Cars is a good example. Not Cars two. Nobody likes Cars two.
No,
Unless,
no, but Cars One has also some very emotional themes.
yeah,
Also, The Incredibles.
especially
I would say
that.
that the Ratatouille also is
Oh,
well.
oh, don't forget
I
Wally and Up.
Oh, Wally, and Up was like the one of the last ones that kind of had that magic. I would
Yeah,
say.
yeah, one of the last ones that's based on an original story. Um,
Hmm.
because like they feel like they get the distinct feel to them. Like they have like that sort of spirit to them that is hard to convey through words. You just have to see it to believe it. And
True.
like it's kind of like with Toy Story, like it's like hard to mention why it makes it work apart from just the imagination of seeing your toys come to life, but it's the characters that make the story go forward. And we can say the same thing for Monsters Inc. as well. Like you would think it would just be them like living as normal monsters, getting all the power they need. But like not only do we get to see how they live like us, and they need it to like benefit their world. But we also get to see how they change and how they become the change for the better.
Yeah, I think that nowadays with Pixar movies, they kind of have like the rule, or they are forced to be like the previous ones and not to come up with their own magic. So it feels like we will never get something as original and just brilliant as those first 3D animated movies from Pixar were. It's just such a particular movement, and it was just revolutionary if you think about it.
On top of that, it also gave us the perfect reminder as to like perfect memories that we got, like just being attached to these characters, how much they mean to you, and
Hmm.
like how memorable they are. I mean, like I can remember solely at the top of my head, even if I haven't seen a movie for so long, because like the great stuff that the movie had is just like it's in your mind already. It's like it's hard not to like ignore it. I know
Yeah,
his
yeah.
voice. John Goodman's voice is just perfect for the guy. Like I also like the colors of him as well, and he's both a perfect example of being like cool and kind of cutesy looking at the same time. Which,
Yeah, man. I would say that voice acting in Monsters Inc. is probably the best one from all Pixar movies. I don't
yeah,
know why, but I remember hearing it as a kid because I mostly watched the Pixar movies in English. And with Monsters Inc., every time those two spoke, it just felt so damn.
yeah. Like
It like it belonged to them, those voices.
I think I
And I
know
was
what
so
makes
happy.
I think I know what makes it work as well. Uh,
What is it?
like with Toy Story's like setting, like it kind of makes it feel like it's like your typical these characters are from like different franchises that already exist,
Yeah.
even though the voices are distinct. With Finding
Hmm.
Nemo, it's very much like something you'd hear from like your school to some extent if you're a little kid. It's
Hmm.
like
Yeah.
difference between like kids talking to each other and parents talking to each other, and but Monsters Inc. I think it makes it work well because you get a different setting all around. Like if you're a kid, you probably hear adults speak like that,
Yeah, yeah.
It makes you want to be like in a factory, helping out in a similar role, powering energy. Although they make it way more fun. Let's be honest.
Yes, they did, dude. Even everything that surrounds that universe, because I remember that short that they did with Mike trying to fix his car.
Oh, that
Dude,
car looks so cool.
that is still so impregnated in my soul. It feels like it is a part of me as well. All
Yeah,
those two things. Oh man, and the ending of the movie when when they did the show that they well made as an excuse to you remember that scene that they lied to the people because um, they were at work and stuff. And then at the end of the movie, in the credits, you see all that show. You
yeah.
see
The
Mike
play.
singing, and
Yeah, that's like they knew how to make it work. On top of like the bloopers. Like I already love the
yeah,
bloopers for Toy Story 2 and The Bug's Life, but I think Monsters Inc. is my favorite, bar none,
yeah.
because
Oh yes.
like
Oh, that ending of Monsters Inc.
look
with
B,
Sully
look B,
reuniting with
yeah,
Boo.
B.
Oh man,
Yeah, that was
I
just
I
touching.
I swear I can't stop it. I probably watched the whole movie. I reached the end and I'll probably cry because that is part of my childhood.
Yeah, and it definitely shows a sign of the fact that like even though the bond between Mike, Sully, and Boo is strong, they unfortunately have to split up because they're from different worlds, and like it's honestly a great way to modernize a take of like another worldly being interacting with characters that are used to their own world.
Hmm.
Like it's kind of like the reverse of ET in a way, which
Yeah,
and like I think that's a great way to make it a modern take on it. Another example would probably be like obvious example coming from me, um, like Transformers, where you have an alien interacting with a human being, but
yeah,
it doesn't feel like it's an ET clone. It feels like its own thing, but it takes the core idea of a human interacting with a non-human being, the concept of that, and making it work in its own way.
yeah, yeah,
Those two
yeah.
films did a great job of it without trying to copy the ET formula, as some people try to do nowadays to make it nostalgic.
Exactly. Yeah, I like those examples, and this one is kind of different because you have a very young little girl that invades the
Yeah,
monster world.
yeah,
Usually, if you think about it, you would feel like it is a horror movie, but no, it's a child's movie, and it has
yeah.
so much weight on it,
And
like so much emotional weight, and
like
ah,
it's great to see like the way the monsters react because
yeah,
back then when we were all little, we used to think, "Oh, monsters are scary," but now they're scared of us because like, that's a great way to be creative with stuff, with like the world that
yeah,
they're in. On top of them
yeah,
relying on
man.
energy, them like using children as a way something to be afraid of, or humans in general, just like yeah, that's pretty. That's pretty like that's a good way to be creative with your stuff for your story.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
and
Also, finally, when they replace fear with laughter, I also liked a lot that as simple as it sounds, it is very beautiful as a message.
yeah, it's definitely a sign of like the fact that they don't have to make themselves look like they have to follow the same footsteps that Water News did. Like in Water, I
Hmm.
know people are so happy, like always say, "Oh my God, Lotso is like one of the biggest like turning points of a movie." Like I like Lotso, I like his character, even though he's kind of like an asshole.
Yeah.
But but Water News's character I think was a lot more interesting because like you get the feeling that he's been with Sully for so long as his employer, and he roots for him immensely. Their friend,
Hmm.
like their chemistry, their relationship is almost like father and son. Like
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
you get the feeling that at some point Sully becomes the next CEO of Monsters Incorporated, which I have to say still looks awesome to this day. I love the design of it. I always wanted to go in that building.
Yeah.
Top 10 fictional places I want to go to. Top number 10, Retroville. Number 9, Cybertron. Number 8, Monsters Inc. Like, yeah, but like the bond between the two is is already there without you needing any backstory stuff. And see the fact that Waternoose ends up becoming like the antagonist is like disturbing to say the least.
Yeah, because you see, like, you see how those two interests crush because he's a very dedicated and a very and yeah, when it's about his work, he's very passionate, but at the same time, he's archaic. Like he can't split from his traditions. So when you meet that with the other thing, and that those two clash against each other, you get a villain like Warnus, and it totally makes sense that Sully, who is like a very talented monster for the Enterprise, suddenly realizes of the contradictions and what is behind everything. It is kind of a vision that we could apply to the modern world even, and
Yeah,
it had some hidden messages that it opened your mind, and as a kid you need to get your mind opened.
right. Especially considering the fact that this gave you in retrospect a good idea of like how you shouldn't always trust CEOs. I mean,
Hmm.
and what to learn and what not to take from them because
Yeah,
like Sully took the approach of being like the main head honcho of a company. I mean, he's a perfect example of it. But it's this
yeah,
friendship as well as his devotion as well as his different views on humans that made him realize that perhaps Waternoose's approach was like not fit for him, especially when he saw his true colors.
yeah, yeah.
I mean, who can forget when when Waternoose approached him near like in the climax of the final scene, like or I don't want to say final battle because there wasn't much of a battle.
You know, it wasn't a battle, but
Like
it
and
was a
this
confrontation.
the final confrontation was like, "This has gone far enough, James. She's home now. Just leave her alone. I can't do that. You've seen too much. You both have. It doesn't have to be this way. I have no choice. Time has changed. Scaring is not enough anymore. But kidnapping children? The out of context, but still like kind of like dangerous line of I'll kidnap 1,000 children before I let this company die, and I'll suddenly see anyone who gets in my way is just
Yeah,
like holy fucking shit. This guy is like lost it.
harsh, harsh dialogue. And you felt it like he was saying it, like he
Yeah,
actually meant it,
yeah, like
motherfucker.
yeah. Imagine being in Sully's point of view. His heart like racing so bad, so fast, possibly sweating, and just being in shock of just how much Waternoose has changed in these past few days.
Hmm. Yeah, he went crazy just to s- let things stay as they are, and well, of course. Uh, just one last thing I want to mention is that this movie also lets you get an example of how in life there will be things that make you be frightened, but if you give it time and you actually let yourself interact and explore what is different,
Yeah,
you may understand it. It's like what happens with Batman v Superman. And I'm sorry, audience, if you're listening to this and you say, "Oh fuck, again they're mentioning Batman v Superman," but yeah, it goes like that, man.
yeah.
People are afraid of what is different,
People
and
are
we
afraid of
just
what they
need
don't
to,
understand. That's what Jonathan
yeah,
Kent said. Hell, like
yeah.
that we could say that about Mike first. Oh my god, we need to talk more about Mike. Okay. Like yeah, that played to Mike as well because he was less confident in being with
Hmm.
less than Sully was. Like Sully grew to like her more and care for her as well.
Yeah, yeah. Mike had a process that required more time. But that doesn't mean that you can't uh, deconstruct previous notions that you have. And I think that those movies did a fantastic job to show that. Um, I don't know what else to say. I'm just so in
Yeah,
love with all these movies.
yeah. Like I think like when you set aside the memes of Mike Wazowski, which are great by the way,
Yeah, they
um,
are right.
like you get the sense that this guy is still like a great character. I mean, I don't know which one I like more, Mike or Sully. Like Sully definitely has his own strong points, and so does Mike, and I think that's what makes him the perfect duo. Like rival,
Oh yeah.
like of course every like animated film has to have like a duo of sorts. I mean, this isn't even Pixar's first duo. I mean, look at Woody and Buzz, but
Hmm.
I like Woody and Buzz the same way I like um Mike and Sully, the same way I like Shrek and Donkey. In the same
Yeah.
way, I guess we could say the same thing for Manny and Sid, even though they have more characters in their group.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think we should talk
Yeah.
about
I mean,
Ice Age at some point.
they had a thing back then that they actually managed to create two characters that they simply couldn't work without each other. The same with, like, for example, Hiccup and
Toothless,
Toothless.
yeah,
Yeah, all those DreamWorks movies and all those Pixar movies, they just knew it. They just knew how to do it. I have no idea
yeah.
how, but wow.
I think it's because like they were mostly interested in like going for more than just like big name actors that are from a previous franchise, but more so making them about like a great story and one that'll be with everyone for so long. I mean, um, like compare this to like Onward. I mean, do people remember Onward as much apart from the fact that Chris Pratt and Tom Holland are the main stars just because oh look it's MCU actors, ha ha ha. I doubt
Already
it.
forgot that movie.
Yeah, I mean contrast like Monsters Inc. feels like it's new every time you watch it to some extent. Like you can put it in theaters again for a re-release, which I hope they do. I mean, I don't think they did it, but they should have, and people go for it. It's it's timeless. They don't make certain jokes aren't going to be dated, and they knew how to make something that will be like eternally evergreen. And I just miss those times when they wouldn't sound like something you just watch for that specific time period.
Yeah, yeah. Exactly. It's just they didn't want to do a generational movie. They wanted to do a movie, like with capital letters. They wanted to do a movie, and for it to be remembered and to mean something.
And that, my friends, is why Monsters Inc. is awesome. Uh, I feel like talking about Monsters University and Monsters at Work, but honestly, uh, should we?
We can leave for another time, but my opinion on those two aren't bad. It's just, yeah, it's not the same.
Yeah, well, the latter is a little bit better, I'd say. Then again, it's like they already knew how to get some of the stuff in that we would expect. No, like major concerns there. But yep, that pretty much sums up our thoughts on X. I thought about X Men '97 out of nowhere. What the fuck? Anyways, that sums up our thoughts on Monsters Inc. Yeah, I'd say this like episodes have been pretty positive overall. We got ourselves like a pretty awesome like Army of Thieves movie. That's a prequel to Army of the Dead, especially now that Matthew is like getting as much involvement as Zach is. Um, I got to like go on like run my mouth about how confusing Sailor Moon R is unless you've seen the show. Um, and of course, we've also talked about how much Earth's Mightiest Heroes was, as far as being one of the best shows out there in spite of its cancellation. And Monsters Inc. reminds us that Pixar used to be awesome.
Totally.
Yep. And that'll do it for tonight. So I want to thank you all guys for stopping by. And yeah, also a lesson for today. Um, have some H2O with you when necessary.
Yeah. And remember, if you're as passionate as I am, you will later be tired, like I am now. I spoke with such an energy that now
Yeah.
I feel like I'm about to, I don't know, collapse.
But yeah, until then, take care.
Wait, don't forget to subscribe. If you do, I'll give you a headbutt. That's ogre for thank you.